Ever get that feeling? Like there's this secret code to sounding smarter in English. You kind of know the words, but something's just like off.
Yeah.
Well, today's deep dive, we're cracking that code.
Okay.
And it all revolves around something you use literally every single day. Nouns.
Okay.
But not just any nouns, right?
Right.
We're talking about countable versus uncountable ones.
It's funny, because it's not just about memorizing a bunch of rules.
Right.
It's really about understanding how we organize like the world in our own minds.
Oh, interesting.
And believe me, once you see the patterns,
yeah.
it clicks in a big way.
It's like someone finally explaining the rules of a game you've been playing wrong this whole time.
Exactly.
And suddenly all those like little mistakes you've been making, they make sense.
Exactly.
So let's start, I guess, with like defining our terms here. What are we even talking about? Countable nouns, what are they?
So countable nouns, these are the things that, that we can easily picture as separate things, individual units. Like apples, cars, ideas. We can have one, we can have two, we can have many of them.
So like if I go to a coffee shop and I say, I want 2 coffees.
Exactly.
Everyone knows I want 2 separate cups of coffee. Not like one giant coffee blob.
Precisely. That's exactly it. They're individual, separate things. Now, on the other hand, we've got these uncountable nouns, right?
Okay.
They're sometimes called mass nouns.
Okay.
Now, these are a bit trickier because they represent things that we experience as a whole, as a concept, like water, advice, happiness.
So I can't be like, can I have 3 happinesses, please?
Less softly.
Although some days I wouldn't mind 3 happinesses.
Exactly.
But I see what you mean.
That's where this code that you're talking about comes in, right?
Okay.
Because even though it seems like a really simple little difference, it affects everything. Whether you use a or n, whether you can use words like some or many, even how the verbs in your sentence work.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video. Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
It all comes back to this.
So this isn't just about like sounding fancier or being like, I'm a grammar pro. It will actually make my sentences make sense.
Absolutely.
Or not make sense.
Exactly. It changes the meaning completely. Let's say, for example, you tell someone, I have a few information about the project.
Okay.
Just sounds a bit strange, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's because a few, you can use that for countable things, but information, that's like this big cloud.
Right.
Not separate little bits.
I see. I can see how that would be confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would be the correct way to say that?
You would say, I have a little information.
Okay.
Do you see how that small change just makes it flow better?
Yeah, it does. And it sounds more natural.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have even thought that was wrong.
Yeah, but it's subtle.
It is subtle.
And that's the power, really, of understanding these categories.
Wow. Okay. So how do we know? Is there like a checklist for a noun to know if it's countable or not?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So first, can you make it plural?
Okay.
Can you say 1 apple, 2 apples?
Yes.
Check. Second, can you put a number directly in front of it? 5 chairs, 1 million dreams.
Okay.
Check. And lastly, if you just have one, can you use the word a or an in front of it? An orange, a cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check. So if it passes all 3 of those, it's countable no matter what.
Almost.
Almost.
Almost, because this is English we're talking about. And English likes to be a little sneaky sometimes, right?
Right.
So there are a few words, just a few, that can actually be both, depending on how you're using them.
Okay. Give me an example.
Think about the word hair. If it's on your head, it's mass, right?
Right.
You'd say, your hair looks great.
Exactly.
But then you find one in your soup, suddenly it's, oof, there's a hair in my soup. It's countable in that context. And way less appealing.
Much less appealing, yes. But that's a really good example.
Yeah.
Because I would never think of hair as countable, but obviously in that situation, it is.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about the word itself. It's about the context.
The context is everything.
Okay, yeah.
And actually, this idea, it's not just with hair, it's with a few nouns.
Okay.
This kind of dual citizenship that these nouns have.
Yeah.
It's something that we're going to unpack because it trips up even like seasoned English speakers,
I believe it.
Yeah.
I'm already like mind blown. We're like 15 minutes in.
Yeah.
Okay, so countable nouns, we can count them, but they sometimes have secret identities. What What about the uncountables? What makes them so special?
Well, the uncountable nouns, you can almost think about them like the strong, silent types.
Okay.
They just exist in this singular form.
Okay.
No matter what. You can't have waters or advices.
Right.
No matter how much you have, they just resist being divided up.
So like water is always water, even if it's like the entire ocean.
The entire ocean is just water.
Wow.
And because of this, we can't use those direct numbers. Like we can't say 2 waters.
Right.
We need other words to help us out. We need what we call quantifiers.
Right.
Like some water, a lot of advice, a little bit of courage. You get the idea.
So instead of 2 informations, it's a lot of information.
You got it.
Okay.
It's about measuring the uncountable, right?
Okay.
In ways that make sense. Think about time, for example.
Okay.
We experience it as this constant flow,
Right.
this uncountable thing,
Yeah.
but we chop it up.
Right. We have to.
We chop it up into these countable units. We have hours and minutes and seconds.
So like time itself is this big uncountable thing.
Yes.
But we're like, nope, I need to chop it up to function as a human.
Exactly. Otherwise, we'd all just be saying, like, meet me later.
Later. That's it. Yeah.
And that's not very helpful, is it?
No, it's not. I like this. So we're navigating between these two constantly.
Yeah.
And we don't even realize it.
We don't even realize it. Our brains are already wired for this. We're just bringing it into the light.
Into the conscious mind.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this is like everywhere.
It really is.
So we've got our uncountables. They're strong, but they need their little quantifier sidekicks.
Yes.
Can we get a few more like everyday examples?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the more real life you make,
Of course. Yeah.
the more this is gonna stick in my brain. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready for some more real life uncountable noun action.
Okay.
Hit me.
All right. So think about some things you encounter every day, right? Like milk,
Okay.
coffee, information.
Okay.
We don't say 3 information.
Right.
We say 3 pieces of information.
Right. Or like 3 cups of coffee, not 3 coffee.
Exactly.
Although some days 3 coffees does sound tempting.
Laugh so.
But yeah, no, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. It's like the container becomes countable,
Yes.
even though what's inside is not.
You've got it. That's a really good way to look at it.
Okay.
And that's where these quantifiers, they become really, really helpful.
Okay.
Because they help us to be specific about these uncountable things.
Okay, so quantifiers, they're like our noun sidekicks. We talked about them a little bit before,
Yeah.
but honestly, quantifiers are where I like personally trip up the most.
Okay.
So give it to me straight.
Yeah.
How do I use these correctly without sounding like, like I'm reading a grammar textbook?
It's funny you say that because that's where a lot of people,
Yeah.
even native speakers really fumble.
Do they?
Yeah. But think about it like this. Okay. So with your countable nouns, you're literally counting.
Okay.
So you've got a few cookies,
Okay.
several people, many opportunities. It's about a distinct number of things.
So like if I eat the entire jar of cookies, it's no longer a few cookies, it's the consequences of my actions.
Exactly. Precisely.
Okay.
With uncountable nouns, though, it's different.
Oh.
It's not about the number of things, it's about the amount.
Okay.
So we use quantifiers like a little milk or some advice, a lot of patience.
Gotcha. Okay.
Get the idea.
And that's where the like nuance that you were talking about comes in.
Exactly.
Because it's not just little versus a lot. It's about the right quantifier for the right situation.
Exactly. And it's not even just little or lot. I mean, even just choosing the right quantifier can make a difference to the meaning. So if you say a little information, that's pretty vague, right?
Yeah.
But if you say a piece of information,
Okay.
that suggests something much more specific.
Right.
Maybe even like valuable. Same idea. Very different feeling, right?
It's true. So like a little advice or a word of advice actually subtly changes the meaning.
You got it.
It's not just about sounding fancier.
Exactly. It's about picking the right tool for the job. Now imagine if you mix those up.
Uh-oh.
If you start using your countable quantifiers with your uncountable nouns, or vice versa,
Okay.
that's when things can get really messy.
Okay, before I create some kind of grammatical black hole here,
Laugh softly.
let's talk about some of those common mistakes. You said even native speakers get this wrong.
Oh, all the time.
Oh, good. That makes me feel a little bit better about my own struggles.
Of course, it's not just you. One very, very common trap is using like or an with an uncountable noun.
If you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like the video, Share it with friends who might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments what topic you'd like to hear.
Okay.
So we wouldn't say, like, can I get an advice?
Yeah.
It's just not grammatically correct.
It's a piece of advice, not an advice. I can hear it now.
Yeah.
It sounds so wrong.
Exactly. And another really common error is, we talked about how these uncountable nouns, they really resist being plural, right?
Right.
But people try, especially in writing, I find.
Okay.
People will write things like informations, advices, and it's a dead giveaway.
It's like our brain just wants to apply these rules that it knows.
It does.
Even when they don't apply.
It wants to fit those square pegs into the round holes.
Yes, exactly. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And so it's about recognizing when to use those patterns.
Okay.
And when to adjust. That's what distinguishes a casual speaker from, someone who's really proficient.
So how do we avoid making these mistakes besides, listening to this amazing deep dive on repeat?
Laughs softly. Well, while I fully endorse that,
Right.
there are some practical things that you can do, yeah. The source material actually talks about starting really simple. Just start with lists.
Okay.
Just write down some common countable nouns, some common uncountable nouns. It's like creating this little mental filing system for yourself.
So apple, cat, chair.
Exactly.
Those all go in my nice, neat, countable column.
Yeah.
And then I've got my water, my advice, my happiness in my messy, uncountable column.
Precisely. It's like you're organizing your brain.
I like it.
And once you've got those lists, use them.
Okay.
Practice.
Okay.
Put them in sentences. And the more you use them actively,
Okay.
the more natural it will become for you to select the right articles, the right quantifiers. Don't just write the lists and forget about them.
Right. Don't let them gather dust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Put them to work.
Use those lists. I like that. So it's about actually using it.
Yes.
Not just reading about it.
Exactly.
It's the difference between reading a cookbook
Exactly.
and actually baking the cake.
You got it. And don't be afraid to have fun with it. Write some silly stories, maybe have conversations with yourself in the mirror, whatever helps those concepts to stick.
Oh, so you're saying grammar doesn't have to be a chore.
No.
It can be fun.
Okay.
It can be playful.
Exactly.
I can get behind this.
You gotcha.
Is there anything else that we can do to really cement these in our brains?
Well, I think sometimes our brains need a little bit more than just words on a page, right? Visuals can be really powerful.
Okay.
And the source material talks about this as well. So, for example, if you have a countable noun, right?
Yeah.
Picture that thing. Just one.
Okay.
So one apple, one cat, one chair, whatever it is.
So, if it's uncountable, maybe I imagine water. And imagine a flowing river.
Exactly.
Or something information. Maybe it's just a big question mark.
Yes. Those are great examples.
Okay.
And that's the thing, right? When you start engaging that visual sense, it just creates a stronger connection. You're not memorizing, you're creating these memories.
It's like we're building mental flashcards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Instead of having the dry definition, we've got this vivid image that popped into our brain.
Exactly.
Okay, I like this. But before we move on,
Yeah.
I think it's important that we revisit those tricky nouns
Right. Yes, yes.
that can be both countable and uncountable. They're like the double agents.
Yes.
The ones that really I feel could trip people up.
You're right to bring that up. Absolutely. Because they're shapeshifters of the noun world, right?
Yes.
And mastering them is like you're unlocking a secret level of English.
Ooh, I like it.
So are you ready to dive back in?
Bring it on. Let's unravel the mystery of these double agent nouns. All right, so we're talking about these nouns that are living double lives.
Mm-hmm.
Countable or uncountable, depending on what's going on in the sentence.
Yeah.
Why are these ones so tricky? Even for people who think they have their noun game down pat.
It's interesting because they kind of embody both, right?
Okay.
They embody the idea of the individual, but also the collective.
Okay.
So take a word like paper, for example.
Okay.
We use taper to talk about material.
Yeah.
The printer is out of paper.
Right.
In that case, it's uncountable, right? It's just this general state of being.
Because we're not thinking about the individual sheets. It's just this concept of paper that has somehow gone wrong and is causing printer drama.
Exactly. But then we use the same word, paper, to talk about distinct individual units.
Right.
I have 2 papers due.
Yeah.
And suddenly it becomes countable.
And now we've got student drama.
Exactly.
It's paper has a split personality.
It really does.
1 minute, It's all about being together and unified, and the next minute, bam, individual pieces causing stress.
I like that.
And it's not just paper, right?
No, not at all.
We see this with time, too.
Exactly.
Which we were talking about before.
Yeah.
It's both this continuous flow, but then we also chop it up.
We do.
Into these countable units.
Let's try to control it.
We do try to control
with
it.
our hours and our minutes.
Which, let's be honest, we're usually not very successful at.
Not very successful, no.
But we try. And this just shows, like, how deeply ingrained this is.
It really is.
Like in how we communicate as humans.
Without even realizing it.
We're going back and forth.
All the time.
All the time, and we don't even realize it. And now you're making me realize it.
That's the goal.
Which is great, but also a little scary. I'm going to start, like, noticing nouns everywhere I go now.
You will, and that's a good thing.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
So, any final tips for, like, how to apply this in the real world without, like, having a grammar meltdown in the middle of a conversation?
Well, I think the key really is to just become an observer of language.
Yeah.
Don't just read the words on a page. Listen to how people actually talk.
Okay.
Pay attention to how countable and uncountable nouns are used in books, in articles, in movies.
Yeah.
Even it's like you're training your ear for the music of grammar.
So instead of memorizing a million rules, it's more about, like, absorbing these patterns until they become, like, second nature.
Exactly.
Like a native speaker would use them.
Precisely. That's beautifully said.
Okay. So challenge yourself, listeners.
Yes.
Next time you're reading an article or you're, like, listening to a podcast.
Yes.
Ask yourself, how are they using these nouns? Is it different from how my friend would use them in a conversation?
Great question. I love it. I'm like a language detective now.
Yes, you are.
Instead of just like a student, you know.
That's what deepens your understanding, really, when you engage with it actively.
This has been amazing, seriously. Like, I feel like we've really unlocked a whole other level here.
I'm glad to hear that.
With something that, like I said, we use every single day, but don't really think about a whole lot.
It's true, but it's fascinating once you start to pay attention.
And that's the beauty of language, right?
It really is.
There's always more to discover.
Always.
Always more to learn.
Absolutely.
All right. So, to our listeners, I guess until next time, keep your ears open, your minds curious, and your grammar game strong.
Well said. I love it.
See you next time.